we are having our monthly human resources development and management 101 conversation show. We have invited two special guests, and that is Darlington from Lafarge in Zimbabwe, standing in for his CEO. We also have Sharon Masia from Eswatini Post and Telecommunication Corporations. I mean, we have the best, and I look forward to conversation. This is the show that is brought to you by Commercial Global Online Channels in association with the Institute of People Management, and it is hosted by Dr. Jerry Gule, who is the CEO of the Institute of People Management, George Mutenda Zemera, who is the CEO of Vula Unlock Consulting, our sister Boniwe Dunster, who is the member of the IPM and the professional HR practitioner. And I think in the meantime, while we're trying to get the rest into the studio, let me hand over to George to introduce himself and then, of course, facilitate the introduction of our brother Darlington, and we will certainly be joined by the other colleagues. Over to you, George, and I will be assisting Michael in the background to get our other colleagues to join him.
Thank you very much, Sam. I think my first remark is to say, COVID has fast-tracked everyone into a brand new era where technology has now taken center stage. And yes, we are having teething problems, but this is the future. And so we will get it right as we go along. My name is George Mutenda Zamera. I'm the CEO of Vula Unlock Consulting. We're a coaching business. I'm an executive coach, a business coach, and a life coach. I am also a host on Cometa, where we interview top people like Darlington Hukuimwe here, who is the HR director and communications director at Lafarge in Zimbabwe. He is standing in for Precious Morena Nyika, who unfortunately, with circumstances beyond her control, has been able to attend. But hey, listen, Darlington will give us the best of what Lafarge has to offer. Sharon Mazia is from Eswatini. She's having some difficulty in connecting, but I know Sharon from way back. She is a very, very highly ranked human resources director, and at some stage actually double-headed. And she also wore the hat of corporate affairs director for Swaziland Beverages. So we'll be waiting to hear a lot more from her and a lot from these two individuals. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining in. I see the attendance is very, very good. We won't disappoint you. And what I would like to do now is to ask Darlington to introduce himself, and we can get the show on the road. Darlington, over to you.
Many thanks. One bit to know that when you introduce yourself, but I'd say later future leader currently as that part of doing it resilient, future-ready organizations that deliver both meaningful and sustained results. By background, I started off my career in a regional recruitment firm, moved on to work for another OD and strategy business across Africa, and then joined EOH Botswana and worked in there for 4 years, and then worked for PwC for 6 years, looking after Botswana, Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and parts of Mozambique. And then from then on, joined Telecom as head I developing a future with the of the integrate the telecom business. Then I then moved into Lafarge, where I am now as HR and Communications Director. I would say, in a nutshell, that's what covers my 15 years of experience within both HR advisory, strategy, and OD.
Great. George, are you still there? I can see Sharon has joined again.
Yes, I am here. Thank you very much. All right, so that was Darlington. Maybe to check if Sharon we can hear Sharon. Are you there, Sharon?
Hi, George. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Hello, are you still there?
Yes, I can hear you, George.
All right, thank you very much, Sharon. I think what we can do now, could introduce you, pick up from there, who you are, what your role is, and your company and the business that you currently serve.
Okay, great. And hello to everybody that's listening. That's tuned in. My name is Sharon Mazia. I'm from the beautiful kingdom of Eswatini. And my background, in summary, is I am a journalist, a communication specialist, and a human resources practitioner, and a legal scholar, in summary. But just to give you a little bit of context, I've worked largely in both communication in the private sector and also in human resources in the private sector, having started off as a journalist and then a teacher. And then I moved on to the private sector, joining Cadbury, where we made in human resources. And then from Cadbury, Swaziland, I then moved to Miller, where I worked there for 10 years, both in communication and also human resources. I am now with Eswatini Post and Telecommunications as the corporate services general manager. That's me in a nutshell, George.
Thank you very much. I do agree that Eswatini is a beautiful kingdom. It's a beautiful country. So for those who haven't been, take a trip down there when you can. So thank you very much, Sharon, and thank you very much, Darlington. We are ready to go now. Let me just double check if all my co-hosts are on board now. Bonnie, where are you? Can you hear us, and can you say something so we know we are on this side?
No, George, they are not with you. They are still on the listener's side. We have to bring them onto the speakers forum side. Only then they can be able to be heard. So I've requested them to try and dial into the studio so that we can welcome them. But we're working in the background. You can carry on. Yeah.
All right. Darlington and Sharon, both of you have long experience in HR and have been in commerce and been in the pub. Our first question really is, if someone is aspiring to rise to be an HR leader and they are listening today, what would you advise them? What do they need to do? What would you say to them? With ladies first, Sharon.
Thank you, George. I think the starting point would think carefully about the career that you want to choose. Human resources it needs the heart. So you've got to do a introspection yourself before you end. Have you got the right personality? Do you think be able to thrive on a daily basis, different personalities. You've got to be the kind of person that would be able to deal with it. That's the first thing. Secondly, associate with those that will help you along that career path. Join an institute. Most countries have got, for instance, the Institute of People Management. It exists in most countries. Affiliate in such institutions so that you can interact with like-minded people that can show you the way. And then in terms of study in tertiary, you would have to choose a program around human resources. I think, in summary, I would advise you to take that route. The most important thing is really to hang out with individuals who think like you, who are already exposed in that kind of environment, so that you can take the learnings and not struggle.
Okay, sound advice, for any aspiring HR professional. Darlington, what do you say?
Thanks for that. I think for me, just to add on to what has been said, I think the biggest learning point in my career has been that building a career is not a sprint; it's a marathon. And because it is a marathon, effort always beats talent. What do I mean? The more you apply, the more you learn. If you want to get to the top, you need to clock your 10,000 hours of experience from the bottom to the top. There are no shortcuts or an elevator to the top. You've got to go through the rounds. You've got to clock the hours, and learn the ropes as you go, but always insisting on feedback, because feedback is the breakfast of champions. And it is only with feedback that we are able to learn and know, where we are lacking, where we need to focus on and develop. I look at myself, I look at the hours and the years I spent, with EOH, with PwC across Africa, working with leadership and executive teams. When I look back, it was not the value I delivered to them that made me grow, but the feedback that they gave me that caused me to that caused me to basically interrogate the value I was creating, to interrogate my skills, my knowledge and capabilities, and ultimately leading to finding the right mentor, focusing on the right areas, and being able to be groomed and nurtured to where I am today.
All right, that's really sound advice, I suppose, for anyone who is listening. And it's very interesting because I see here you're emphasizing feedback, and how that is what helped build you. Because these days, everyone wants fast food very quickly from one post to the next. So what would you say were your key lessons, Darlingston, while I still have you, that you learned in your career, rising to the level of being the leader you are today?
So half the time, I think the biggest challenge we have as HR people is that we get immersed in our own understanding of what the business is, what its priorities are, and what it requires of us, without truly getting to the bottom of the agenda in terms of understanding, be it from a shareholder perspective or from a CEO perspective, what it is that can be a game changer for the organization from a people perspective. For me, things changed the day I stopped looking at the business with an HR lens. Things changed when I started looking at the business, as a businessman in charge of HR. Suddenly the conversation changed and the value expected changed, which resulted in an alignment of priorities, leading to the breakthrough growth that I managed to achieve.
Okay. So looking at your role from the business end, that's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. I think it's good to do HR stuff and fancy things, but as long as it's not adding tangible, measurable, bottom line value, and then we'll go on in circles and never get any.
Okay, so what are you saying to the young professional going up as an HR person? What must he do practically?
So the young HR person must find the problems, the specific problems bedeviling the business, the specific performance challenges bedeviling the business, and be able to leverage their collective knowledge and experience in order to apply both HR methodology and practice to innovate solutions that can, solve the problem for the business and deliver tangible results.
Excellent. Sharon, what is your input on that?
I think Darlington puts it very well. It's all good for starters when you join the department. Well, at least I'm talking from experience. The first thing is that you need to understand that in order for you to fully understand the business, you need to understand what you need to be delivering as a department. And, I have a smaller organization, and now with quite a big organization, I've learned that don't rush to be at the top or to land in a specialized role, George. So human resources is quite broad. You for instance, you can be in the training department, or you can be in admin, or industrial relations, whatever. It's quite broad.
Right.
If you start with smaller kind of setup, you are forced to be a generalist. You don't have a choice. And that is the best thing that you can do for yourself, to start off learning all the aspects of corporate services or human resources, because it exposes you to everything. And then the higher you go, or you then can be at liberty to choose where you feel you have an inclination towards. If you enjoy training and facilitating, then you are in a position to actually choose, having been exposed to all aspects of corporate services. So I would advise the young ones coming after us that volunteer, expose yourself to everything that is on the ground before you can start specializing and choosing. And because if you start off the other way around, you are limiting yourself. You're limiting yourself. Yeah. Because one day you will be at the top. You need to know what is happening on the ground when you are at the top. So expose yourself. It always helps when you are now in a strategic role, as we are in now, to help strategize, understanding what is happening at the bottom. Once you are in a strategic position, as Darlington puts it, your lens really does change. You start thinking from a business perspective, not your narrowed view of just the department. So you are asked the hard questions. What value will this bring to the organization? Hard, which is why it then becomes necessary for us as HR practitioners to do the shift, the necessary shift, and focus on the analytics, the things that we should be analyzing to put a proper business case when you are in at the round table.
Well, that I'm hearing the benefits of being an all-rounder initially, and then graduating to specializing, and obviously becoming more business oriented. Now I'm hearing that. Now, These are crisis times that we are in right now. If I could ask both of you, what is helping you to cope and lead currently? There's, I think my favorite word is VUCA, environment. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, it's ambiguous. What is helping you to cope? Maybe if I could ask you, Darlington, you come from an environment that is definitely VUCA.
I think the one thing that helps you cope in an environment of volatility, complexity, and uncertainty and ambiguity, the one thing that will help you to remain sane in such an environment is having a clear strategic thrust, being clear about your strategic priorities, because while the environment will bring lots of disruptions, I'll give you a good example. In our business, as a cement business, with the COVID disruption, it meant that no longer can the customers come into our shop in order for them to buy product. It also meant that our logistics were disrupted. It also meant our sales and merchandising generic strategies were disrupted. But the goal remained the same. And having a clear direction and agility and flexibility in terms of empowering teams to innovate the how to deliver the results is what will enable you to survive. We saw for us in our business, suddenly we saw lots of collaboration coming from our team, innovating digitally to a point where today 98% of our sales that used to come through customers coming into our business to make payments, to make purchases, now all happening on our digital platform without anybody having to move from their office or from their home. We saw deliveries and logistics happening coordinated through that online application, without people having to physically move and get paper signed off. And in essence, that's what enabled us to actually remain sane in this storm. So having clear strategic priorities. When COVID came, we defined our strategy clear. The objectives on sales remain the same, but on top of that, we focus on health, cash, and cost. Everybody understood that we needed to preserve cash. We needed to do whatever it takes to preserve cash. Number two, we needed to focus on cost because we don't know how long the crisis is. Our experience had shown us that the COVID crisis is not a short-term thing. It's a long-term thing that can last 3 to 5 years. And that focus on cost was critical. And then obviously the focus on health, ensuring that people remain the priority in line with our zero harm agenda is what enabled us to actually succeed throughout the storm and deliver fantastic performance.
Yeah, I hear clear strategy there, definitely. And for the Post and Telecommunications Corporation, what did the Times do for you?
Oh, it's been hectic for us, George. When it hit us last year, I must admit we had never had anything like this before. So we had to quickly put together a framework. How are we going to work around this and pass that quickly to the board for approval, and then act very quickly that this is how we're going to manage the situation. I think we've done pretty well looking at the numbers on the ground. What we were not prepared for was the psychological effects of the whole thing. So we had everything intact, the usual cover your mouth, sanitize, etc. So on the clinical side, everything was fine. We're working in shifts, rotating. So that was fine. But I have to admit that it's the psychological part that hit us. And that was the learning that these things need to go parallel. So we're still working on that. We have provided services to all employees, and especially the human resources staff who have to deal with these issues on a daily basis, checking up on sick people, making that phone call. You know, the softer issues, not the mechanical stuff. Have you done this? Have you done this? No, it was the softer issues. Just that phone call. Are you okay? Um, are you taking your meds? Are they discharging you? How are you feeling? We have received feedback, and I like what Darlington says, that feedback is the breakfast of champions. That feedback was so valuable for us because we didn't pay much attention we didn't think that it meant a phone call would mean so much to a person. We had provided everything. We were paying for the tests. We were providing medical. We were paying for everything. But what mattered most in terms of feedback was that phone call that we made to every employee that was affected.
I want both of you to talk to me about this one, because pre-COVID, the whole talk was going into technology, fourth industrial revolution, etc. And the contact with people, the eye to eye, the individual person and the business was drifting down the priorities. What has COVID done in relation to the value that businesses place on their employees as people? I'd like each one of you to talk to me about that.
I think for us, people have remained core to our business because not only are they the source of our innovation and performance, but they're the biggest asset we have in our business in terms of the knowledge and capacities that they bring. And, with COVID disrupted the day-to-day interactions, it created a lot of solitude and loneliness and isolation in our teams. And for us, it became a huge challenge. And at that point, it resulted in us launching a program that we called the IGROW, Employee Resilience Program. And IGROW was a nickname for inspiration, growth, resilience, optimism, and wellness. And under that specific program, what we did was under inspiration, ensuring that, on a weekly basis, we are churning out positive motivational material that people can engage with in order to counter the depression and anxiety that was emanating from COVID. We implemented also in our situation, the challenges with our economy versus currency volatility. We had to focus on growth to help our people preserve and make the most of the money that they were earning. So the growth aspect of our program was focusing on financial literacy to say, in such crisis times, how does one spend the little or much that they have to ensure that they're able to stretch the dollar and get the most value that they can get out of it. We looked at, obviously, optimism, which was leveraging our psychosocial support to ensure that people remained optimistic through virtual counseling services, virtual psychosocial support, just to make sure that our people remain mentally sound and are able to still deliver. You can imagine now in our operation, when people are not mentally sound, the accidents prevalence rate literally goes up. And it was necessary for us to do that. And last but not least, we also then focused on wellness, where we launched various wellness initiatives that included Zumba mornings online, where people could connect and be able to do the various exercises. The Wellness Wednesdays to encourage people to eat better, because we realized that the average body mass index in the business was going up. People were eating without moving. And obesity was becoming a serious challenge. And that wellness helped us, coupled with the Biggest Loser campaign that we launched, just to ensure that our people remained sound, remained well and focused. Then we implemented, safety bubbles and rotations, which meant that for on-site teams, once they get on-site, we maintain registers for the various sections. They stay in the demarcated areas just to ensure effective contact tracing, as well as mitigation of the risk of spread if at all there was contamination in one area. Then there were rotations again in support services, where people would on a rotational basis come and work from the office to ensure that they remained in touch with the business, to reinforce that sense of belonging. In a nutshell, those are some of the things that helped us to continue in the middle of this crisis.
Thank you very much, Redal. And Sharon, what did you as a team do?
Yes, George. I think Darlington has already touched on most of the stuff that we've been doing as corporate services. The important thing was just to ensure that we keep the positive messaging up and going at all times, because we noticed that we had a lot of people that were depressed, that were actually starting to lose hope. When we had one or two of our brothers pass away, it was a big blow for us as a business. So we had to bring that positive messaging right throughout. At the same time, encourage that we need to be cognizant of being productive, remaining productive at all times. The wellness initiatives, we decided to make aside from providing assistance for hospitalization, etc., we did small packs for those who infected with COVID. Small packs for them to take at home, which included supplements, masks, the sanitizers, a basic pack that you needed to have at home, because we looked at the finance of everyone, that not everyone will be able to afford some of these things that they should be having, and also keeping their own families safe in isolation in the event that they were found to be positive. It was just a small pack that included masks, sanitizers, vitamin C, very basic stuff, but much needed at home by our people.
Okay, all right. And I suppose the last one I have around this point on COVID is the response by your stakeholders. Obviously, the employees are the number one stakeholders. What about the other stakeholders? What did you do to respond to that in relation to the other stakeholders?
I think on our side, we ensured that whatever communication we push internally, the same communication went out to our customers as well, because the nature of our business is that the technicians, if your line is down, because we're in telecoms, then we need to go to your premises to fix your line. So you can imagine the fear that came with that from both the customer and the employee. So we had to manage that and ensure that we've given them protective clothing, proper protective clothing, as they went in teams to give support to the customer, and also assure the customer that we had ensured their safety as well, by ensuring that our people are provided with PPE and all the basics that they needed to have. All the cars had sanitizers and masks, etc. So yeah, we learned from just being on the ground on how to improve further. I think the biggest challenge that we hadn't anticipated was when the had a problem with their lines and they needed a technical support. Our employees were really concerned that they will need to be servicing hospitals where the patients have been taken in. So we had to sort that one both psychologically and also by providing necessary PPE, which is different than the normal one that you have in the workplace. Is very different when you go to a hospital.
Okay, thank you very much. Sharon, to talk to me about on the personal level, how you managed to cope with COVID-19. But I'm going to go across to Darlington and ask what the response was. How did you deal with the stakeholders around COVID-19?
All right, thanks for that. I think for me, the challenge was even bigger because I look after both HR and communications, which means the CSR portfolio falls under my portfolio, and like what my colleague said, focus was on raising awareness, on what COVID is, how to prevent COVID, how to protect oneself against COVID. That resulted in us creating virtual groups for our business. We operate in a community where we've got various levels of literacy, which meant having people in the various communities in WhatsApp and SMS broadcast groups where we, up to today, we regularly broadcast information regarding COVID in terms of awareness, in terms of statistics, in terms of latest developments. And that helped us to raise the general level of awareness in the community, because in our view, we believe that if we are not safe as employees of Lafarge, if the communities around us are not safe and are not practicing safe behaviors, that resulted in the establishment of what we called COVID champions in the communities, people that we specifically trained and equipped to spread the message around COVID in the community to ensure that things are being done correctly, and also feed back to us with specific intelligence on developments in the community and gaps where we would need to assist. Added to that, we went forward to equipping the local community by donating PPE, sanitizers, and the like, just to ensure that the local clinic in the community was ready and prepared to handle COVID. On top of that, I remember with the leadership of our CEO, we became instrumental in laying the foundation for an association, an industry, private sector association called Businesses Against COVID, which resulted in business mobilizing equipment and fundraising to capacitate some of our hospitals that did not have capacity to both admit and deal with patients suffering from COVID. So we went the full throat and we went the full, 10 yards, even to the extent of mobilizing a private sector fund that would aid the government in terms of the procurement of vaccines. Added to that, as part of our CSR, we run an initiative that we call Shine Simuka Upenye, where we identify young girls from disadvantaged backgrounds and we take them through polytechnics to get skills in dressmaking, cookery, and the like. And through COVID, we identified a brilliant opportunity where we leveraged these young girls who were just finishing their program at the polytechnic and empowered them to start a cooperative that manufactured over 5,000 washable masks that were bought by Lafarge and other stakeholders, thereby killing two birds with one stone through empowerment while also delivering the much-needed COVID PPE.
Well, I like that. They say that every crisis is an opportunity, and I can see right here an example of that. Thank you very much. And Sharon, I did warn you that I would ask on a personal level what the impact of COVID was on you.
I think for me, George, it's been more the psychological impact. I, I think psychologically we were not prepared that we would be overwhelmed by all of this, and providing the necessary support to the whole organization, looking at you for all the answers when you've never actually walked this journey before yourself. So I think that one, was a bit of a stretch for me. But you've got to hit the ground running. Great learnings that we've gotten. On a personal level, I did get to a point where I needed to see a psychologist myself to cope with the situation, so that I would be able to give necessary support, not only to the team, but the whole organization.
Can I reveal my interest there? Because as a coach, these are times where we want to help as many people as possible. Does your organization work with coaches around helping employees? And I'm asking the same question to you, Darlington, as well.
So coming out of COVID, when I look at the pressure that we had to deal with, and coupled with the heroic role that we had to play, I remember one day, it was in the evening, I was sitting at home with my wife around 9 p.m., getting a call from one of my senior managers, who you could tell was in a critical condition, being trying to reach out to various emergency services, whom we've got service level agreements with, and not being able to get hold of them. And in the nick of the moment, remembering from your networks, various specialized doctors in that locality, and leveraging them and persuading them to go and attend to the case in the nick of the moment to save a life. These were really, really pressurizing times. These were really pressurizing times. I never thought, would end up in a place where, given our context as a country in Zimbabwe, where, the risk of our medical facilities getting run over by cases was getting higher and higher by the day. Being able to innovate, getting strategic medicines into the business to develop startups, getting the various related accessories so that we're able to monitor patient health accurately and remotely. That was one of the most challenging things in our time. And to come back to your question, this for us highlighted the need for a well-structured and well-coordinated coaching program in place. And I can assure you that following that initiative about 3 months ago, we strengthened our coaching program, which had been there. It had been there for some time, but what we went through in COVID highlighted some of the inadequacies that we had, and we had to relook and revamp in order for us to get better results, and so that people get the right support, the right coaching, so that we continue delivering despite the crisis around us.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, because both of you are leaders in your communities. You're highly regarded people. You are leaders in your community. What do you think helps a leader to become credible beyond their immediate circles? Anyone who's ready can pop in there. What have you done? What do you think helps a leader to become credible beyond being HR director?
I think for me, it boils down to 3 things, really. Number 1, being authentic. Being authentic, being genuine, not having multiple faces, really, but being authentic. What that does in crisis moments like this, when you then speak with the voice, people really understand, people really buy in, people really, endorse and support. So authenticity for me is number one. Number two, obviously, integrity. As leaders, we've got to work with integrity. We've got to, say what we mean and live what we say. And for me, those key things, those are some of the key things that are important. Also in crisis times like this, remaining visible, no matter the crisis. People always want to hear from their leaders. People always want to see their leaders. Throughout this crisis, I kept on recording videos, recording audios, communicating over and over, giving voice to other ExCom members and the CEO to make sure that together we lead as a united team throughout the crisis, and ensuring that the commitments we have pronounced, the policies and support are really followed through with execution, excellence, and fulfillment.
Darlington is absolutely right. I think as a leader, for you to be seen as being credible, you need to be seen meaning everything that you say. People need to feel you. They need to see that you are being authentic. Cultivate a culture of trust amongst your people. Build trust, earn it, and show that you are with the people and you mean whatever it is that you say as a leader. You need to be seen acting on your word. I think what also I would add from what Darlington has said is consistency. Consistency is key. Then people start believing and trusting in whatever you say or do as a leader. So it's important to remain genuine and sincere, so that you build the trust that you want from the people that are looking up to you.
Right. I'm going to ask this one specifically for Darlington at Lafarge. I saw some interesting statistic on your website which talks about by 2050, 70% of the world population will be living in cities, and therefore everyone will be buying cement. What does that say about your vision for Lafarge in Zimbabwe?
For me, that means that we've got to innovate. We've got to help Zimbabwe build cheaper, smarter, and better. And today I'm excited to say we are living up to that promise. You know, some of the latest products we've innovated, for instance, one of the products, a product called Water Shield, which is a cement, a waterproof cement built using Hydra defense technology to prevent water ingress, which means people can still build structures in areas prone to, to moisture. And still be able to have solid structures. One of the latest things that we've done is with the installation of and commissioning of our dry mortar mix plant, we are now able to produce 3D printing mortar. And beginning third quarter in Zimbabwe, we are bringing for the first time 3D printing of houses, which will make construction of houses faster, cheaper, and much more affordable and accessible to the greater populace. Where a house was supposed to take 4 weeks to be done, in 24 hours, the superstructure of a house will be completed and will be ready for someone to move in. And I believe because of that, in the various innovations and products, as Lafarge, we are helping the country build better, smarter, and more effectively.
Well, that is something to be said. 24 hours to get a superstructure up. Very interesting.
Absolutely.
Sharon, on the technical front in Eswatini, what is the future saying for the Posts and Telecommunication Corporation? What is your focus in the next 5 to 10 years?
Although I will not speak for the corporation and just share my personal views, George, I think what is key for us in the telecom sector is agility and understanding that there are better ways of giving service to our customers. So let's leverage more on the technologies around us and use them. Becomes key.
Okay.
Every day, we've got to keep up with the pace. We cannot afford to fall behind. The whole world is speaking on connectivity at all times. With this COVID issue that's been on the ground, overnight we've had to change the way we do business. Not only in our sector, but all sectors, really. Education, one can only imagine that they went through, because then suddenly kids old technology. So it was hectic. It's all around, and everything borders on connectivity. Yeah.
And while I still have you, Sharon, you have worked in the private sector for many years, and now you work for a state-owned entity. Is it true that HR is HR, no matter the type of entity you work for? If there are subtle or big differences, how do they manifest? And what implications does this have for managing talent in these settings?
Yes, HR is HR. It doesn't matter what entity you go to. The difference is the kind of entity about private sector, and the difference from experience is in the private sector. It is very clear there are goals that are set, and the vision is clear. This is where we're going. These are the tools that you're going to need and the resources. Go run with it. We want results. It's very clear and straightforward, and the resources are there. On the other side, however, there's a lot of bureaucracy. It's not that the issues are not the same. The issues are the same, but there's a lot of bureaucracy. So what you would achieve in 1 month in private sector, it will take you 12 months in public. That's the difference, because it's got to go through different layers, different signatures, different approvals, different on the same issue. So fundamentally, having gone through experience, it's just quicker to deliver on the other side as opposed to on the public side.
Oh, okay. Now, and this is really to both of you. And given that all HR teams have had to do what they have had to do in the new normal, the new way of working, one hears that HR teams experience a feeling of despair and being lost as they have to, for want of a better word, mother everyone in the organization but themselves. How have you helped your HR people to help them cope and not feel neglected by the organization? I know you touched a little bit on that, but I think it's so important that let's just go over what you guys have done to ensure that people do not feel neglected by the organization. And can this feeling be avoided of you having to mother everybody?
I think for me, it's been a bit easier in the sense that my CEO has a strong HR background, and as a result, kind of understands what it feels like to be in HR. You know, I used to laugh with my CEO, and my CEO would say, you know, being HR director, it's like you are the brother-in-law of the business. Everybody looks to you for everything, you know. And it's a thankless job. and when you have a CEO who understands, absolutely. So when you have a CEO who understands that, they always look for moments in time, you know, to recognize and celebrate the fantastic work that the HR team would be doing. But from my end as the leader within the HR function, being able to demonstrate empathy each time you're talking to somebody working remotely, understanding that they are in a situation where probably they've got a spouse or child or relative who's a victim of COVID, who's suffering from COVID, and they have lots of pressure. So being able to empathize, and with that, maintaining flexibility around work hours to allow people to be able to rest and recover, and creating, for me, especially where we have relaxed lockdown rules, having catch up and refreshment sessions where we either do breakfast, we do lunch together as a team, we are able to share experiences, and also just ensuring that they've got virtual medical and psychosocial support. For me, that has been one of the great helps, because at least they have somebody to talk to in the moment where they need somebody to talk to, just to unload and unload the psychological pressure, you know, that it feels like. Imagine monitoring a COVID patient, talking to them either over the phone or on WhatsApp for 14 or 20 days, then they pass on. That feeling never leaves easily unless somebody has the right psychosocial support. And this is what we managed to achieve through a partnership that we had with a local company that provides counseling services, just to ensure that both our HR staff and our people have the requisite support.
So you did mother everybody, but you were able to do that with the support of your top team and do that very well.
Absolutely.
And Sharon?
That's correct. We have also done similar, but I think the learning for us was, for me in particular, was that I suggested to the team when I saw that, you know, they were drained, I suggested that, why don't you go camping, and then we can do some bungee jumping, and, you know, go out there and just relax and unwind. I got some silence from the team, and I said, okay, what's and they said, you know what? we just need a massage. Can we just have a massage? And it took me a bit back, but I then, learned that I shouldn't think for them. I should have asked that how can I assist? I automatically had thought and convinced myself that if they go out for a weekend and we can go camping and riding and doing all sorts of things, it would help. No, they have been so drained as a team that they just want a massage. So that hit home for me, because that's the time I realized how drained they really are, the whole team.
Thank you for that, Sharon. I must confess.
Maybe just to
carry on, Darlington.
Or maybe just to add on to Sharon, I think for me, one of the key learning points which came early was learning from our group network, creating what we call the business resilience team, composed of HODs across the business. All right. Then leveraging those, because the role of the business resilience team was to meet at least 3 times a week, assess the COVID situation, assess implementation of protocols and departments, identify gaps and actions to implement. What this did for us is that it also reduced the burden for the HR team, as the HODs then carried some of the burden. And we then further went on to divide them into what we called iGrow families, where each employees were in groups of about 12, with a selected leader whose role was just to follow up each day on the people in their group, ensure that they're exercising, that they're well, and that there are no problems. If there are issues, then escalate. So having those structures helped to actually just reduce the burden, to prevent a lot of burnout.
I was going to make a comment to say that I had another HR practitioner say that his team told him that all they needed was a hug. And that talks to what Sharon was saying, that they need a massage and not complicate things too much. But for those feeling overwhelmed by being the key support for the organization, for those HR people feeling overwhelmed and see no reciprocal support, what would you advise them to do? Anyone can pick up this one, and it's really your colleagues who are feeling overwhelmed. In other businesses, what would you guide them with?
I would recommend establishing a business resilience team, which is really cross-functional, composed of your HODs, which ensures that they have sufficient mandate and power and influence, and they can help to take part of that load. Number 2, outsource a lot of virtual patient monitoring and psychosocial support. Either to a counseling or coaching organization, just to make sure that you remain sane. If you've got a large number of employees like I do, your team will not. And having actually help.
Okay, I'm hearing using third parties as part of your implementation.
George, there is also a follow-up questions from Dr. Gule. If you give me opportunity, I will read it for the guests to respond to.
Thank you.
The question from Dr. Gule goes as follows. He says that workplaces are not bastions of ethics. What is HR's role in driving ethics? And also in some organizations, that he goes further, Dr. Gule says, also in some organizations, HR is not trusted on issues of confidentiality and are seen as management bodies. How have you won the trust of the entire company? the HR team. And I guess it's in the context of the discussion that ethics is something that is expected to be driven by HR. But then if HR is being perceived to be a body of management and leadership team, how will you make sure that the HR is trusted, basically?
Okay, just on the... Go ahead, Sharon.
In terms of addressing HR driving ethics, I would think that if we provide in a professional manner proper written standards around ethical workplace conduct and ensuring that everybody is trained on that, then it would go a long way in equipping everyone to reinforce the company's values. So I think from the HR side, it's just ensuring that everything is written down in terms of ethical workplace conduct, and then also training everybody within the organization.
And the point that you are, in many cases, perceived to be a pro-management. In other words, when they look at HR, they don't see that is what he's saying. In some organizations, people don't believe that HR is there for them. They believe that HR is there for the business, basically. And how do you avoid such confusion in the eyes of the team?
For me, I've often found that that problem arises when there is asymmetry of information, where the levels of understanding in terms of where the business is and where it is going and how it is doing, when that knowledge is not the same across the board, it often creates that feeling, especially where HR is engaged in collective bargaining or grievance handling processes. To avoid that, I've often found in our business having a clear, number one, communicating clearly in terms of the facts and the figures around how well the business is doing, what challenges the business is facing, and having mechanisms that ensure fairness in terms of compensation and sharing of results is very important. For me, that meant establishing a productivity bonus reward framework where every month we are forced to communicate what the EBIT target was, what the business achieved, and based on that, what bonus people would receive. As a result of that, I realized that, the misinformation that used to be there to say, business, HR is just sent by the business to say they don't have money, the business has problems. I realized that began to dissipate because in our business, every week they receive what we call a productivity bonus tracker, which shows production against target, sales against target, actual collections against target on a dashboard in percentage terms, which ensures that everybody knows where we are, knows the reality of the challenges we face, and what the potential outcomes have been. And for me, that has enabled me to gain a lot of trust, especially from the consistency that comes with me meeting the commitment by making the payouts as and when they end and they become due.
Yeah, yeah. So it's really more about sharing information, relevant information, timelessly, and ensuring that everybody's on the same page in understanding where we are, where we're going, how we're doing. Sam, do you have another question there from Dr. Gule?
No, that is, I think, the only question that I have in the chat box here. George and colleagues, Darlington and Sharon, having worked in HR myself, I understand where Dr. Gule is coming from. Basically, he's saying that we're playing a delicate balance all the time. Because if you think of it, it's impossible for you to be a head of HR and not be part of the management team. That is a given. But what he's basically saying is that now you also have to make sure that the staff can come and really put their trust on you, that you will be there serving their interests. In other words, when you're sitting in the management team, you almost play that role of representing the interest of the management without actually contradicting yourself in terms of HR commitment to the strategy of the business and the business goals. And I think it's an art. It's an art basically to play that role. And I agree with Darlington that one way of doing that is to make sure that there's continuous communication in a way that you can be trusted. That transparency is talking about. So that the next time when you are really discussing issues of holding people accountable in a way where you enforce the policies of the organization, like disciplinary hearing and all those type of things, you can be trusted that you will do it in a fair manner. Is that how you implied, Darlington?
Absolutely. It's always a very delicate balance, like you rightfully said. And for me, one of the other things which I found very effective is really investing a lot of capacity building and training for the members of the union to change their mindset, to realize that we are bound and united by one thing: the survival, performance, and sustainability of the business. And when you change that mindset, to some extent, they become your business partners who will bring to you issues and help you solve them, because they are interested in making sure that the company performs and they deliver value for themselves and also for their stakeholders.
Important.
Absolutely. I mean, if you say the union is your partner, that means you need to know what their interests are. And you need to know what part of your contribution is in making them make their interests. So training is one way of that, capacitating and empowering their members. Sharing the information on the results, that means that they can understand when you say we are not going to increase the salaries because we didn't do well. But don't tell them when you are not able to do it. Tell them way in advance, make them part of the planning. But I'll be very interested how complicated it is in a state-owned enterprises, because the thinking is that the state-owned enterprises is give and take. Is that the way it is, Sharon, or I'm wrong? Am I wrong with my assumptions there?
Yeah, very correct. I think it is more challenging for that kind of setup. There's very little trust, if I can put it that way. So you have to really work hard to ensure transparency at all times. And just leave a 0% for any doubt in terms of what you're trying to deliver or get across. So the transparency and honesty and consistency becomes key. You communicate. You cannot over communicate. So yeah, you really your patience does get tested, but you get used to repeating yourself until everybody until you are on the same page with everyone, because there is a huge issue of trust.
These are the things that we don't get told, George, when we study HR. We only see them, you come across them when you are right in the field.
Yeah, trust is a big one. Trust is a big one, really, in any management role. When you get that right, you find that you get the support of subordinates and colleagues.
I think that's all from my side, George.
So, so prior to COVID-19 hitting us, the buzzword people were talking about the future of work, right? Artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and all that. Now, my question is this: are we in the future of work already, or is this just a blip that we're going through, and that we will go back to where we were pre-COVID? Any one of you can pick up this question.
I think there's certainly no going back. We are in the new reality. We're talking about AI, we're talking about big data, we're talking about robotics, we're talking about machine learning. You come to our business today, like I was saying, 98% of our sales are through our digital platforms, which is Lead Retail, our digital chatbot, and what we call the Lafarge Omniverse, where people are able to interact, to us in that automated framework, and are able to buy products and services without interacting with anybody. We are now used to working remotely. We are now used to flexi work. For us, gig employment has become a new reality, and it is working perfectly fine. And I believe that there will be no going back. What COVID did for us is that it accelerated the pace of digital transformation, where it would have taken us probably 5 years for us to get to where we are today because of COVID, because we are afraid of signing papers physically, because we are afraid of meeting physically, virtual conferencing, digital sign-offs, and the like. All of these have become a newfound reality that I believe will not regress and go back from once this crisis.
So we've been leapfrogged into a new era. Your comments there, Sharon?
Yes, George. My opinion is that there's no going back. This is it. Forward ever. We've got to keep moving. This is the new way of doing things. COVID has actually assisted us to move quicker than we would have done it without COVID. COVID didn't ask us if we were ready. COVID didn't ask us how much time do you need. We just had to hit the ground rolling very fast, when all along we had been theoretically saying all sorts of things about artificial intelligence, all the correct things, all the theory. COVID did not leave with a choice but to go and do it. And yeah, there's no going back.
Sharon, did you find yourself having to accelerating the training and the skilling of the people, or did you get surprised just to find out that actually our people know more than we think? I mean, the fact that your employees don't get this technology perhaps at work didn't mean that they don't experience this technology on their own time. Because I've heard that some companies were shocked when the adaptability of their employees, which suggested that you were not giving these technologies to your employees, but they were having their own ways of accessing them. And the moment you had no choice but to start using WhatsApp, Messenger, and all these things, they just said, voila, this is what we have been waiting for.
We've been doing it all along.
Is that at work you barred us from accessing internet?
Yes.
So imagine the organizations that had stuck to buying desktops. What happened when we went into COVID? Those that were saying laptops are only.
So it wasn't the same across. So some groups were ready to hit the ground running, but others had a huge gap which we had to quickly fill in with the training quickly, and also provision of resources. So not everyone had a laptop. We had to ensure that we buy things that we hadn't budgeted for. And not just buy the laptops, but ensure connectivity in people's homes so that they can be able to work from home.
Just to add, Sharon, to say for us, there was also the new reality of having to restructure benefits, where somebody had a fuel benefit to come to work, no longer need the fuel. They need data to work from home. They need a portable desk to work from home. And that meant we had to think creatively and outside the box around how we restructure benefits and make remote working a reality and a success.
I'm very curious as an HR in terms of at what point does the risk transfer to the employee, to the company, or at what point does it stay with the employee in that home office? Did you have to change your policies, and did you have to change your insurance packages, and did you have to go and inspect the home environment, or what happened? Or do you just say, listen, this is a crisis moment. It doesn't matter whether you work from the kitchen or you work from the garden, as long as you work. And work with water next to your laptop, and all those risks.
So we listen to the employees. We listen to the challenges that there is. Some of them say to us, I don't have a lot of space, but I need a desk and an ergonomic chair to work with. And, we had to then innovate and come up with a subsidized policy where employees are able to procure foldable desks that they can deploy in their homes and chairs that they can sit on, with the insurance still covering, obviously, for the laptop and the other the gadgets that we're giving them, but while ensuring that they have the requisite tools that enable them to work safely from home.
Sure. This is a beautiful story to write a book about how to make it happen without any pre-plans.
There you go. Actually, interestingly, coming out of that is let's cast our eyes past COVID, whether it's in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. What place for the hybrid workplace now? Because now you've invested in all these assets in someone's home. Are we going to come back to the offices? Is hybrid going to be the future? What's your comment on
that? I think, George, as we said earlier, yes, we're going to have to have this hybrid that we now have. There's no going back. This is the future of work. It's taught us the good of actually having this kind of situation, because in everything that happens around you, you pick the learnings. It's not everything that is bad. How would you have known that you could actually work perfectly remotely without popping into the office, saving fuel, saving resources by just working from home and delivering what is needed of you? So yes, I'm in agreement. We are still going to continue having this hybrid, and people need to realize that human resources is very important. People still remain important, because even if we're having all this technology and improving the way we do things to improve our efficiencies, you need people to actually do that. Whether you are programming or putting in new systems or what, you still need people. So people, it's just a different role that we're going to be playing in future. Yeah, but we still need them.
Just to add on, Sharon, to say, imagine in my situation, imagine how much money you have from this, because people are no longer coming to work. Your subsidized canteen service is now a huge saving for you. Your big admin overhead cost in terms of data, consumables, and all that is all one of your major savings. Surely with those savings, you are able to then, enable staff on a shared model to buy furniture which they like, in an approved budget and be able to amortize its usage over time. Whether they leave you or they don't, the furniture is theirs after a certain period of usage. But you have successfully implemented the model without going outside budget, but actually being able to deliver within and under budget and allow the business to continue operating.
I'm going to come back to this us looking into the future regarding what's happening in HR, people management, and the leadership space. But I don't want us to close because I'm looking at our time. We are at 2:45, and so we would be leaving soon. I wanted to find out from you, as HR professional, what role or what services do you think institutions like the IPM can or should be offering to you guys? I know, Darlington, for you, Precious is the president, and so perhaps we start with you.
I think in this new reality, there is a lot of benchmarking that the institution needs to facilitate, because everybody is trying to find their way. There are lots of good practices to learn from, and I believe that the institute can create that platform for benchmarking. The institute also has a vast network of experienced resources, which can provide both coaching, mentorship, and advisory service that can help organizations, build the capacities that they need to continue to survive and thrive in such challenging times.
And Sharon?
Yes, I'm in complete agreement, George. I think that is the way to go. Darlington has put it very, very well.
Okay. Sam, do you have a comment around that?
I'm very interested in regional best practices as well, because today we are here in South Africa and we're talking to Darlington in Zimbabwe and Sister Sharon in Eswatini. And I think with the emergence of the Africa free trade zone, that suggests that our modeling, our benchmarking and business model for HR needs to take that into account, because the borders are breaking down in terms of the future when it comes to business. And HR is there because there is business. So I would want to know, beyond just that, what can these institutions like IPM do to facilitate and support initiatives like the Africa Free Trade Zone? And what type of skills do you think we're going to need for our people to be able to function in such a fluid type of a market? Because this is also going to be another tsunami that will hit us very hard if we pretend not to be seeing it. And then at least at the Southern African region level, we can start perhaps, and people will always say that the government must do this and that. Governments do protocols and agreements, but it is us as business people, from a people point of view, that are going to be needed to enable that. And in many cases, HR tend to be brought in too late when deals have been signed, and then you find that, but you should have told me long in advance. I should have trained people. So let's just think a little bit broadly and say, what do you think we should be going back to the drawing board as IPM to enable that future over and above AI and the fourth industrial revolution? Sorry, I took longer, but I wanted to create a context.
That is correct. My is that we need to, either ourselves or business, whoever does it first, we need to engage with business at large. What is it that business needs in terms of skill sets and competencies on the ground? And then work together and partner with the tertiary institutions so that they start producing what the business needs. And because this has got a domino effect. Whatever we need on the ground, as you correctly say, somebody has got to start working on that so that they give us what we're looking for. So it's a matter of partnering and coming together with the institutions that train and our people together with business as well. Because if you don't know what programs you should be offering, then you will give out the wrong stuff at the end, the wrong output.
So you support the notion of academic and industry forums to influence the supply side and also be informed by the demand side. Carry on, Dalton.
Just to also add on, I think for me, some of the critical things that we need to see us doing, as people management bodies, is really around establishing standards, ensuring, integration and regulation of our practice, and just harmonizing at a regional level. I remember a couple of years back, I was chairing a Botswana HR standard setting task force. I come to Zimbabwe 5 years later, I come back, I realize that the process is still starting. You go to many countries, the HR fraternity is the only fraternity where you've got various people management institutions when the accountants only have one body. So our industry needs a lot of standardization, a lot of regulation, because as you rightfully point out, as we integrate in an open free trade area, we need a lot of standardization to make it easy for business to operate in the various territories.
Absolutely, and things like continental talent mobility, that will need a changing of policies as well. In fact, that means going to collaborate with government in terms of movement of people, in terms of qualifications being acceptable, and in terms of if you come for experience for Botswana, will it be looked at similarly, the same way as in Swatini or Eswatini or South Africa? And I think that follows on a question that was raised again by Dr. Guli. He says that to build on the Africa continental trade point, he says that should the HR associations collaborate with government? I think it's a given, but I will want you to also to comment on that, because I think he is following up on the same issues of standards and also regulations. Because we can come with HR policies, but HR policies are informed by government laws.
Definitely. I would certainly be inclined towards that. Government is a huge stakeholder for us. So definitely at the table.
So, George, the idea of regionalization is not bad at all. And from regionalization, then you can go continental. Because Southern Africa, for me, I see it as just one geography that should be integrating more.
Absolutely, you're 100% right. And all parties really have a stake in it. Government working with private sector, it's very important for that for the parties to synergize and agree. Obviously, agree roles. The business role and the government role is the regulatory one, creating the frameworks that will enable business to do what they need to do best. But yes, cooperation is absolutely paramount.
I would like to believe that IPM is actually the same. I mean, you've got IPM Zimbabwe, IPM South Africa, IPM Eswatini, I guess. That looks like IPM had foresight a long time ago.
Yeah, get so into the future.
Over to you, George.
I suppose, as I said, I'm now conscious of my time. I had said I was going to come back to this one, and maybe your lasting thoughts, each one of you, on what do you see happening in the HR, people management, and leadership space in the future? What do you see? What would you like to see?
Thank you, George. I think my pattern was really is that we need to be strengthening, just working more collaboratively, forming collaborations, and there's no need to start your own little thing on the side. You know, there's so much more we can achieve when we work together to get the desired result. So I would push for more collaboration and synergies amongst all the countries, so that we can one him.
And Darlington, what do you see as happening in the HR, people management, and leadership space in the future?
Look, I obviously, from an HR point of view, I see a lot of a digital transformation happening in the HR space as HR basically automates and leverages technology to do better what it used to do manually and with what it used to take its time in the past. HR leveraging a lot of big data in order to calibrate performance, in order to identify the right talent, in order to help organizations make better people decisions. I see as a result of that, a lot of HR people becoming trusted by businesses in order for them to lead in more senior roles beyond just HR into operations and even into either MD or CEO roles. Because as you look at it now, the organizations that have had CEOs with a better understanding of people issues have actually managed to thrive and emerge more resilient in this crisis than all the others. Which begs to the question to say, is not all leadership about leading and managing people? And hence, I see that question causing HR to rise to the top as we move into the future.
That's a good. And whilst you're there, Darlington, because this is a very important question for me. I read a lot about the role coaching has played for leaders in the West, your Steve Jobs, etc. What do you see as the role of coaching in bringing out the best in the leaders in your business and in your markets?
For me, you can't find a successful CEO whom you can't trace to a specific coach who in their right has probably done well or has been a trailblazer in the past in one area or than the other. Coaching is the foundation that will help us bridge, especially when I look at our Zimbabwean economy, where we have got a lot of educated people with limited work exposure and work experience. You bring them into the workplace, they can't perform, they can't function. You have a generational gap in that the guys who are in industry, who are very experienced, who are getting now to retire, don't have as many people of their same caliber to live in there. And you can only bridge that gap through coaching. And hence, coaching will actually be the game changer, especially from a Zimbabwe context, that will enable us to bridge the talent gap and unlock better performance from our organization.
Sharon, one last one from you.
I think Darlington really summarized it nicely for us. HR really needs to moving being analytical, so data becomes a big issue, and the shift to the right direction for all of us.
Right, Sam. I'm looking at your time there.
Wow, sure. I wouldn't mind to listen for another 1 hour. So many issues. And thanks very much to you, George, and the colleagues and the listeners at large. We need to carry on deliberating on these issues. And I'm really glad that we brought people with technical and practical experience. And I hope we have a lot to take home with, to think about how best we can support our businesses. And that's the whole idea of this program that we host every first Wednesday of every month. We can't wait for the next month. I know we have lined up some powerful speakers. Thank you very much, Darlington. Thank you very much, Sharon. We are honored to have had you here at the Comesa podcast live. George, we will see each other again next month when we will be welcoming other trailblazers from the people management side. Thank you very much. The podcast will be available and we'll share with the listeners. If you go to ComesaRadioPodcast.com, or you can go to any of the famous platforms and just look for us, you will find the episode. But we will also publish it on social media for people to listen to it and share with their colleagues at work. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Goodbye.